93 years old. Eleanor, Nell, to anyone who's known me more than 5 minutes, which by now is most of the people left. I was out in the garage this morning, counting folding chairs. 11 of them. Don't ask me why 11. You'd think it'd be an even number. One got left behind somewhere along the way, or broke, or who knows. 11 metal folding chairs stacked against the wall, where my husband's workbench used to sit before I had it hauled off years ago. I wasn't sentimental about the workbench. I was sentimental about having the space. My niece came by yesterday and said, "Aunt Nell, you don't need 11 chairs. You live alone." And she's right. I don't disagree with her. I just stood there counting them again this morning, like the number might have changed since the last time I looked. There was a stretch, 20 years, maybe more, when this garage was a kind of rental property. Every spring, every summer holiday, every time somebody's child graduated from something, the chairs came out. I'd haul them into the yard and set them up in rows, like I was running a hall instead of a backyard supper. People I half knew, cousins of cousins. A woman named Ruth who worked with my sister and just started showing up 1 year and never left off showing up. I didn't mind it. I want to say that clearly, because it's easy to make this sound like a complaint, and it isn't one. I liked the noise. I liked not being able to hear my own thoughts for one whole afternoon. There's a comfort in being the place everybody ends up. I was good at it too. I could take a pot of beans and a pan of cornbread and stretch it to feed 14 people and have every one of them leave thinking they'd gotten the good seat, the good plate, the extra piece. Nobody taught me that. You just learn it. The way you learn to carry a hot dish without thinking about your hands. I know exactly how many dinner plates I own. 12. I could tell you that without thinking twice. Same as I could tell you how many chairs are in this garage. Funny, somebody asked me last week how old I'd been when I had my third child, and I had to sit and count it out on my fingers like a schoolgirl. The plates I knew, my own life I had to do arithmetic for. Ruth now. I should tell you about Ruth, since I brought her up. She wasn't family. Not really, like I said. She came with my sister's job, some connection through the school where they both worked, and she just attached herself to our gatherings the way a stray cat attaches itself to a porch. Nobody invited her the first time. She just came with somebody who was invited, and then the next year she came on her own, like that settled it. She had a way of arriving with a dish nobody asked for, and everybody ended up fighting over. A potato thing, cheese and onions and too much butter, wrapped in foil, still warm from her own oven 2 towns over. She'd set it down on the counter and say the same thing every single time. Now, don't everybody act like you've never seen potatoes, like she was daring us to enjoy it. I liked her. I want that clear. She wasn't a close friend, not the kind you call at midnight, but she had a seat at my table for the better part of 15 years, and that has to count for something. Then 1 year she just didn't come. No call, no excuse, nothing. I asked my sister about her once, a year or two later, almost in passing, and my sister said, "Oh, I think she moved out near her daughter," in that tone people use when they don't actually know and don't want you to notice they don't know. I never did find out what happened with Ruth. I think about that potato dish sometimes, more than I think about people I was supposedly closer to. I couldn't tell you her middle name, or where exactly she ended up. I could tell you exactly how much butter was in that dish. I remember a New Year's. I was somewhere around 55, standing at my sink at 2 in the morning, washing a pot, while everybody else was still in the front room laughing at something I wasn't part of anymore. My hands had gone soft and wrinkled from the dishwater. My back had that ache that sits right under the shoulder blade. My daughter came in for a glass of water and found me crying over the sink. Not loud, just leaking, I suppose. She said, "Mama, what's wrong?" I said I didn't know, which was true. I really didn't. I stood there a minute longer after she went back to the front room. Didn't dry my hands, just stood there. Then I turned off the kitchen light and went on with the dishes in the dark, because the dark didn't ask me anything. I kept going another 15 years after that. You don't stop a thing like that just because something in you went quiet for a minute at a sink. It takes longer than that. My husband was at that same New Year's, somewhere in that front room full of noise. I want to tell you something about him I've never said to anyone, not even my daughter. There's a photograph somewhere, I've looked for it and can't find it, which might be its own kind of answer, of the two of us standing in our own kitchen during one of those parties, maybe 40 people in the house, and we are standing 3 feet apart, both of us smiling at different people, and neither one of us is looking at the other. I remember somebody took that picture and thought it was sweet, the two of us hosting together. I look at it now, in my memory, since I can't find the actual print, and what I see is 2 people who'd learned to be in the same room without being together in it. We didn't fight. We didn't even disagree, really. We just got very, very good at hosting side by side instead of living side by side. I don't say that to be sad about it. I say it because nobody tells you that's a thing that can happen to a marriage. Not an ending, just a long, polite drifting that looks from across a crowded kitchen, exactly like togetherness. I had a closet in the hall, just outside the guest room, where I kept the good towels. White ones, soft as anything, folded in thirds the way my mother folded hers. Those were for company. I had my own towels in the bathroom, thin, a little gray from washing, perfectly fine. My husband passed when I was 61. That's not the center of this story, so I won't dwell on it, except to say that for a while after, people called more, and then they called less, and then they mostly stopped, and I noticed the second kind of quiet was different from the first. The first quiet was grief. The second quiet was just nobody needing anything from me anymore. I didn't expect that one to be the harder one. It was. I went back to work part-time at the church office, just filing things, answering the phone. Not for money, for somewhere to be. There was a morning, not long after, when I just didn't get up. I don't mean I couldn't. I mean I lay there past 7, past 8, the sun already up good and proper, and I thought, let's see if anybody calls. Nobody had a key to my back door anymore by then. Nobody just walked in the way they used to. I lay there with my hand near the phone on the nightstand, half curious, half something else, and it didn't ring. Not for almost 2 hours. When it finally did, it was somebody trying to sell me a new roof. I got up after that and made coffee and didn't think much more about it at the time. But I remember it. I remember it clear as anything, clearer than I remember whole years from when the house was full. A friend of almost 40 years called me one Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday because Tuesdays were my one evening with nothing on the calendar, and said she needed to come talk about a family trouble. I said yes. I always said yes. Even though I'd been on my feet all day, even though my knees were already starting their business by then, she came over, talked for hours, ate the supper I'd made for myself, borrowed a sweater she never gave back, hugged me on her way out and said, "You're a lifesaver, Nell," and then she was gone, and the house was just mine again. I stood at the door after I locked it, didn't move for a minute. 63 years old, and I thought if I've got another 20 or 30, However many the Lord sees fit to give me, am I going to spend every single one of them exactly like this? I sat down at the kitchen table that night with a cup of tea and made a list. Not people I wanted to see, things I wanted to do with whatever time I had left that didn't involve anybody else's comfort but mine. Nap without feeling guilty about it. Read a whole book without stopping. Sit in a quiet room and just sit. Not one item on that list needed an audience. My mother, before she passed, used to say, "A full house was a blessed house." I believed her for about 50 years. People didn't take well to the change. My sister said I was getting cold. One of my oldest friends just stopped calling altogether. No fight, no goodbye, just fewer and fewer Tuesdays, until there weren't any. That one stung longer than I expected. I started saying no. Just the word, nothing attached to it. People got used to it faster than I thought they would. Reservations got made. People started arriving on time, the way you do for somebody whose time you've finally understood is worth something. I started using the good towels, just for myself. The first time, I stood in the bathroom holding one, white and soft, for longer than you'd need to just dry your hands. Around that same stretch of time, I took up something I'd never have made room for before. I started keeping bees. Just 2 boxes, out past the garage, nothing serious. My nephew set them up for me, mostly to humor me, I think, and showed me how to handle the frames without getting myself stung half to death. It's slow work. You can't rush a hive. You stand there in that ridiculous net hat and you just watch them for a while before you do anything at all. I lost the first colony that winter. Didn't insulate the boxes right, didn't know any better. Found them all dead and clumped together in the cold one morning in February, and I stood out there in my robe and boots crying over a box of bees, which is a strange thing to admit to a person, but there it is. My niece thought it was the saddest thing she'd ever heard, me crying over insects, and maybe it was. I think I wasn't only crying about the bees. I started again that spring anyway. Got better at it. I've got 4 boxes back there now, and most mornings, weather permitting, I go out before breakfast and just stand near them, not doing anything useful, just listening to that hum, which is a very particular sound, not loud, not quiet either, just steady. There's something about a sound that doesn't need you that I find more restful than almost anything else in my life. The bees don't care if I'm there. They'd go on humming if I dropped dead in the yard. I find that comforting in a way I never expected to find anything comforting. I'm 93 now. I live alone, and most days nobody comes by at all. I have maybe 3 people left who I'd open the door for without checking the clock first. When they come, we sit. We talk. Sometimes we don't talk, and that's fine too. There's a man 2 doors down, younger than me by maybe 20 years, who waves every morning from his driveway when he goes to get his paper. We've never had an actual conversation, not once in 9 years, just the wave. I used to think that was a sad sort of relationship to have with a neighbor. Now I think it might be exactly the right size. He doesn't need anything from me. I don't need anything from him. We just confirm once a day that the other one's still upright. My knees don't love standing at a stove the way they used to. There are mornings just getting dressed takes longer than I'd like to admit. My daughter, the one who found me crying at that sink, she visits a few times a year now. Lives a distance off. Last time she came, she sat in my front room and looked around for a long minute and said, "Mama, it's so quiet in here." And I could hear in her voice she wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a worry. I told her, I spent 40 years in a house full of people and felt like nobody was home. Now I'm in a house with just me in it, and somebody finally is. She didn't really know what to say to that. That's all right. I didn't expect her to. This morning in the garage I got down to 10 chairs and one left over, the 11th, the odd one, slightly different color, doesn't fold quite the same as the rest. I don't know where it came from or which gathering it arrived with. I stood there a good while deciding what to do with it. I didn't throw it out. I carried it inside instead, set it at my kitchen table across from my own chair, where nobody's been sitting in a long while. I don't know that anybody will ever sit in it. That's not really the point of it being there. I made my tea, sat down, looked at the empty chair across from me for a minute, and then I stopped looking at it and just drank my tea.